Okay. I've been informed that apparently TNA did announce last week's TV main event before it happened. They didn't announce the no DQ stipulation, but they did in fact announce the match. Not sure how I missed that, but there you go. Unfortunately, announcing the match really doesn't mean anything if it goes completely unnoticed by people like me. If you're just going to have Mike Tenay mention it in passing, that really doesn't help you. You have to announce these things in such a way that makes them impossible for people to ignore. That's all I'm saying.
Whoa! Stop right there! You've got notes written on the computer screen! How dare you not do the whole video from memory, you bastard! You're the worst person in the world!
I'm sorry. Do you know how long these videos get?
Yeah.
And do you know anyone who could do all that from memory without making some notes to themselves?
No.
So cut me some slack already.
Yeah, well, you have jokes written for you by a team of writers instead of coming up with your own jokes. You douche.
Really? And where do you get all your jokes from?
I have them written for me by a team of less talented writers.
So we're exactly the same then?
Yeah, pretty much.
So why are you getting so bent out of shape over this?
Because I'm a dick.
No argument here. This was presumably the first episode without any involvement from Vince Russo since Dave Lagana replaced him. And if this was any indication of what we're in for, then I'm pretty optimistic right now. This was a good show. Really good, actually. Was it perfect? No. There were a couple issues, the biggest issue being the announcing. The announcing this week was god-awful. Even worse than usual, and with Mike Tenay, that's really saying something. But he wasn't the only offender here. Maybe I'm imagining this, but it seemed like they gave Taz the Jerry Lawler dirty old man gimmick because he seemed unusually horny this week. Talking about how the whole Knockouts match should just be Velvet Sky bouncing up and down on the ring apron and being really preoccupied with the women's looks all of a sudden, even bringing it up during the main event, which didn't even make sense. And there were other times when it was like he had ADD all of a sudden, and he just switched to a completely different topic of conversation for no reason at all when there was a match going on in the ring. And Mike Tenay was even worse about this. I don't know what the fuck was going on with Tenay here, but him and Taz would be announcing a match when, from out of nowhere, completely without provocation or impetus of any kind, Tenay would just start making these random pop culture references. Like, they're right in the middle of the Knockouts tag match or the main event, and then suddenly, Tenay just starts talking about TMZ and Madonna and Joe Francis and what's going to happen when Lindsay Lohan hosts SNL, and... What? Why is he saying all this? Why is he talking about all this random shit that has nothing to do with anything? Is Tenay going senile? Does he have dementia or something? What the fuck is going on here? This is just a wild guess, mind you, but TNA, if you want to incorporate all these pop culture references into the show to prove that you're more culturally relevant or whatever, if that's what this is about, you need a better vehicle to deliver this stuff than fucking Mike Tenay, who at this point in his career is arguably the worst announcer in the business. Subtlety is just not something Mike Tenay is capable of, especially these days. You know, JB stays pretty current on pop culture trends and stuff like that. Put him in the announce booth and he might be able to weave these things into his commentary and make it seem a little more natural than just obviously pulling completely random TMZ news bites out of his ass. Can we please have JB replace Tenay already? Good God.
This whole show is ridiculous!
So the show starts with Kurt Angle, who comes out to explain why he attacked Jeff Hardy. He had his reasons written on cue cards, which was kind of funny. You know, he makes some jokes, and then he gives the real reason, which is that his son Cody idolizes Jeff Hardy instead of him. Then Hardy comes out and they get into it. And this kind of came out of nowhere. It does seem like a bit of a flimsy reason to start a feud between two of your top stars, but I wasn't really expecting an earth-shattering explanation here. The whole purpose of this is really just to get Hardy out of the title picture. I think we all know that. And for that, it'll suffice, I guess. I mean, Hardy not going after the championship for a while because of this is all I care about, so I'll accept it. That said, I don't particularly want to see a prolonged feud between these two. If it goes to lockdown, that's fine, but I don't want to see more than that. Number one, because I really don't care about veterans versus other veterans anymore. And number two, because former WWE guys versus other former WWE guys is just counterproductive at this point. Both Angle and Hardy should be feuding with homegrown stars that they can give a rub to like Angle just did for James Storm. But it is two of your top guys. It'll be a big match for Lockdown. It might give you a little bit of a ratings boost, so in the short term it's fine. I just don't want to see them drag this out for too long. Then Austin Aries approached Bobby Roode backstage. They talked about their mutual disdain for Sting, and Aries mentioned that tweet he posted and then deleted, which I'm now thinking was a work the whole time. And they go talk to Bully Ray about this. And to their credit, they didn't just have Bully and Roode immediately let bygones be bygones. There was some tension there, and they touched on it just enough to let you know it's still an issue. But it turns out Bully Ray hates Sting just as much as Roode and Aries do, and this was going to go somewhere really cool later on. But before that, we had a gauntlet match that was set up last week, so they get points there, with AJ versus Daniels and Kaz. Now, I've said this before, I don't like saying it, but when they do AJ versus Daniels, I start to tune out. They have nothing but great matches, and this was no different, but we've seen this so many times now, there's just nothing interesting about it anymore. Fortunately, they've got Kaz as the X Factor here, and he's the one who's keeping this from getting boring. As long as the Kaz element stays interesting, then this angle stays interesting, and right now I'm intrigued by what Kaz is doing. It was pretty clever what they did here, actually, having Kaz hit AJ with his finisher, getting Daniels DQ'd, but then immediately pinning AJ so they still won the gauntlet. So, Kaz did what Daniels wanted, just not the way he wanted it. And you kind of got the tease that Daniels is starting to think that Kaz is growing beyond his control and he might have created a monster here. And that's interesting. That's not where I expected this to go at all. And at the same time, it makes sense. There's nothing stupid about it. So it looks like this might be evolving into a three-way feud, which I like the sound of. The trick here is to continue having logical, natural progression with it every week and trying to keep Kaz at the center of this thing because his part in this is what's holding the angle together. AJ versus Daniels, I don't care. But stick Kaz in the middle of that and have people not quite sure what's going on with him, now I'm paying attention. Next was Madison Rayne versus ODB. So this match was set up by Gale, who basically did it to fuck with Madison before their title match. Then the finish came when Madison told Gale to pass her the title belt, but Gale slipped and couldn't get it to her, and ODB got the pin. Madison spent most of this segment getting her ass kicked, and the match was pretty short, thankfully, but goddamn, Eric Young is irritating as fuck in these matches. He tries to lock up with everyone and their brother because he's an idiot. He gets up on the ring apron and tries to tag in because he's an idiot. He jumps in the ring for no damn reason at all because he's an idiot.
Will you sit down and quit making a fool out of yourself?
And I just want to reach through the TV screen and punch this guy in the face. All he does is distract from what's going on in the ring. Granted, when it's a Madison Rayne match, that's probably not a bad idea, but Jesus Christ, this is overkill cranked up to 11. I know casual fans like him, but for fuck's sake, can't we put a leash on this guy? Fucking Mike Tenay could give Eric Young lessons in subtlety. That's how over the top this character is.
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
You know, Santino Marella is really over comic relief in WWE. And yeah, he'll get a push from time to time, but at least they know when to rein him in. I had hoped with Vince Russo gone now, we might possibly see a de-emphasis in this stupid crap. Maybe they'd adopt a less is more philosophy with him, but no such luck. And I hope you guys realize, this is only gonna get worse. I've read the spoilers for next week. It's gonna get a lot fucking worse. Ha-ha! From there, things got a lot better. We went back to the main angle of the show. Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, and Bully Ray came out and cut promos on Sting. And they staged this fake protest in the ring, mocking the I'm done thing that was cracking me up. And then Sting came out and put them in the main event against James Storm, Samoa Joe, and Magnus. What? What's that? Austin Aries in the main event? Hell yeah! I love this segment for that announcement alone. Also because it was great promos from everybody involved. There was just one issue with this. I'm not sure what they were going for here, but note to the writers, if you want to have three of your top heels point out all the stuff that your babyface authority figure is supposedly doing wrong, make sure it doesn't backfire on you. Bobby Roode is saying that Sting is not an active wrestler anymore. He's being selfish by booking himself in the main event of a pay-per-view when there's a locker room full of hungry young stars that deserve that spot more, and Sting is abusing his power as the authority figure by doing this. And you know what? Bobby Roode is right. Sting is abusing his power as the authority figure in this situation. He's basically trying to have his cake and eat it too, taking a spot from a young star that he doesn't deserve, and whether you agree with Bobby Roode or not, you have to admit that's a damn good point. This is basically the exact same issue the whole main event Mafia feud was based on, except back then Sting was a heel for doing this type of stuff. And Sting, of course, has no rebuttal for any of this whatsoever. Even if it does kind of make sense to do Sting versus Roode at Victory Road, it doesn't change that. In fact, I spent this entire promo wondering why it wasn't Dixie Carter saying all this stuff instead of the biggest bad guy in the company. I mean, sure, people booed him for saying it, but that doesn't mean he was wrong. So yeah, that part was pretty messed up. But I still love this segment. Also, they sure turned Joe and Magnus babyface really damn fast, didn't they? I mean, I guess it's not that much of a stretch. I mean, they were leaning heavily toward the heel side of the tweener field, but they never really went all the way with it. Plus, they had been fighting the babyface pops for a while, so I guess I can buy this. Then they had an X Division segment where they showed another video about Jesse Sorensen's injury, and then they showed Zema Ion boasting about it. Now, a lot of people are going to have different opinions on this. Personally, I've never liked it when really serious shoot injuries get turned into angles like that. I mean, when WWE turned Eddie Guerrero's death into storyline fuel, that was one of the most tasteless things I've ever seen in wrestling. Having said that, I understand why it happens so much, because even if it is kind of a sleazy thing to do, it works. Okay, I may not like it, but it's a really easy and effective way to put heat on someone. And if they're smart about it, Zema Ion could get a hell of a lot of heat from this. Apparently, Sorensen is expected to recover and make his return at some point, and if and when that happens, a feud with him and Ion could be hot as hell. And just suppose Ion is the X Division champion when Jesse returns. You know? Scoring that title win after coming back from an injury like this, they'd never have a better way to make a star out of this guy. Hell, it practically books itself. But that's pretty far off in the future. In the meantime, they've got Ion versus Aries for the X Division title at Victory Road, and the writers need to be really careful here if they don't want to inadvertently turn Aries into a face in this match, because I really don't see him getting booed against Ion right now. Then Ion had a match with Shannon Moore. It was pretty good, the right guy went over, I had no complaints. They had a Knockouts tag match with Mickey and Velvet versus, strangely enough, Sarita and Angelina. Now, this was set up earlier in the show when Velvet was shrieking into the camera backstage about how pissed off she was because she's paid her dues long enough in this company, and then Madison Rayne screws around and obtains a shot in the Battle Royal, blah, blah, blah. And then Sarita and Angelina just attack her because they're evil, I guess. And then Mickey makes the save and we have a tag match. First of all, Sarita and Angelina, that's kind of a random pairing, isn't it? And what happened to Winter and Rosita? Did they have the night off? Did they quit the company and protest to the fact that that jackass Robbie E is still walking around with a television title? Did they walk out because they were so disgusted about what's going to happen with ODB and Eric Young next week? I wouldn't blame them if they did, but still, it's kind of weird that Sarita and Angelina were just buddies all of a sudden. Plus, with the way the announcers were talking about them, it kind of seemed like this was going to be a more regular thing. I don't have a problem with it, I'm just wondering where the hell it came from. Anyway, the match was actually really good, due in no small part to the fact that Velvet Sky did very little. You know, Mickey and the heels worked the majority of the match, they did all the heavy lifting, then Velvet came in at the end, hit 2 or 3 moves and got the pin. And I don't like that, but if you absolutely have to book Velvet Sky to win matches, that's how you do it. Leave the wrestling to the women who can wrestle, and then bring Velvet in after all the hard stuff is finished. You know, I don't like Velvet Sky in the ring. I never have, I never will. As a wrestler, I think she's a complete waste of time, but goddamn it's good to see Sarita back. And she actually broke out a suicide dive here. I don't think I've seen that since they made her stop doing her high spots when she turned heel. And I never understood that in the first place, by the way. I mean, you've got this gorgeous woman who can fly all over the ring like a fucking acrobat, a wrestling style that makes her totally unique from every other knockout you have, and you tell her to stop doing this?
You people are fools!
Stupid. Hopefully this is a sign that she's bringing that stuff back now. So I ended up really liking this match because they were smart enough to focus on the workhorses and book around Velvet to a large extent. But I've got a horrible feeling about where this is going. I swear, if this is all building up to Velvet versus Gale for the Knockouts title at Lockdown,
Oh my God, he's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
Oh, God. There aren't enough suicide pills in the world. And that brings us to the main event. It's a six-man tag match. Bobby Roode, Bully Ray, and Austin Aries versus James Storm and the Joe Daddies.
Joe Daddies. So you're still calling them that, huh?
Yes, damn it! Being a big fan of a lot of the guys in this match, I was really looking forward to this one. And damned if they didn't have the best TV main event this company has put on in a really, really long time. Aries and Magnus looked like they belonged there. Joe seemed right at home. They got like 16 minutes and had a clean finish. I love this main event. This was great. I mean, I was marking out just for the fact that Aries, Magnus, and Joe were in it, but it was a really fun match on top of that, too. Good to see James Storm get the pin for his team, although Bobby Roode may have needed it more. I mean, Roode's looking kind of weak right now. At this point, he really needs to go over Sting in a big way at Victory Road if he's going to be looking strong for Lockdown. And I think that's probably the plan, but with this company, you never know exactly. So the faces win, and then Bully Ray takes them all out with a chair and says James Storm won't make it to Lockdown. So it's looking like it'll be James Storm versus Bully Ray at Victory Road, and that sounds perfect. I mean, yeah, we've seen that match a couple times now, but Bully Ray is such a damn good heel, and he knows how to get guys over like few people do. So if you want to give Storm some extra momentum heading into the biggest match of his career next month, he really couldn't ask for a better opponent. You know, I hated the ODB Eric Young nonsense. I hated that Velvet freaking Sky got another win and will probably be getting a lot more in the future. But take those things out, and I love this episode. Great wrestling, smart booking, Sarita was back on TV, some of my favorite talents being elevated, a kick-ass main event. Minor gripes aside, this show is freaking great. Hashtag great. It depresses the hell out of me that the ratings tanked this week because, other than that, Lagana's off to a great start writing-wise. However, I know what's coming up next week. Lagana, Pritchard, Bischoff, Conway, you don't get a pass on that. Hell no. In fact, it infuriated me so much when I read it that I had to outsource my comments to someone who could articulate my position for me because I was too filled with bile to do it myself. Jane Lynch, your thoughts on that thing that's going to happen next week?
Destination? Horror.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.